in this filter. This is our filter. Our knowledge is our filter. Now, knowledge can enlighten, like light, or it can blind, like light. You see? And experts love the fact that they're experts. So they are usually, or very often, people who are not very open to change. Now, I'd like to read you some comments from some experts. Experts. Aircraft are interesting toys, but of no military value. Marshall Foch, France, 1912. The radio has no imaginable commercial value. Who would pay for a message sent to nobody in particular? Associates of David Sarnoff, the founder of RCA and NBC, in the 1920s. Oh, it gets better. Television won't be able to hold on to any market it captures after the first 6 months. People will soon get tired of staring at a plywood box every night. Darrell F. Zanuck. Darrell F. Zanuck, 1946. That's the founder of 20th Century Fox. This is what I really like. I think there may be a world market for as many as 5 computers. Thomas Watson, head of IBM. It gets better. Computers in the future may weigh no more than 1.5 tons. Popular Mechanics, 1949. By the way, you have more computing power in this laptop than NASA had when it put a man on the moon. Just so you know that. I can assure you that data processing is a fad that won't last out the year. Editor of business books for Prentice Hill, 1957. This one's really good. There's not the slightest indication that nuclear energy will ever be available. It would mean the atom would have to be shattered at will. Albert Einstein, 1932. The horse is here to stay, but the automobile is only a novelty. President of Michigan Savings Bank, 1903, advising Henry Ford's lawyer not to invest in the Ford Motor Company. Heavier than air flying machines are impossible. Lord Kelvin, British mathematician and physicist. There is no need for any individual to have a computer in their home. Ken Olson, president of Digital Equipment, 1977. We don't like their sound, and guitar music is on the way out. Decca Recording Company, rejecting the Beatles in 1962. Everything that can be invented has been invented.
Yeah.
Charles H. Duell, that's a Commissioner, U.S. Patent Office, 1899. This one's good too. 640K ought to be enough for anybody.
Okay.
Bill Gates. Expert.
What year was that?
1981.
Some experts change their mind.
Usually after a non-expert changes it for them.
Doesn't matter. As long as they admit.
No, but progress comes from who? Progress comes from the outsiders. Progress comes from the people who are on the fringes. $100 million is way too much to pay for Microsoft. IBM, 1982. This one's good. Who the hell wants to hear actors talk? H.M. Warner, Warner Brothers, 1927. Thomas Edison was kicked out of school in the 3rd grade. We now know he's probably hyperactive. And thank God he wasn't born today. Would have given him Ritalin and he wouldn't have invented anything. Somebody once made the comment, gee, what could he have done if he'd gone to university? Somebody said, no, he wouldn't have done anything. He would have learned what couldn't be done. And you know, in Silicon Valley, what they're doing now, they're going into high schools. They're mentoring the top students. And they say you've got a job the minute you get out of high school, as long as you don't go to university first. Once they're working, we'll send you to university to make your mother happy. And what's your imagination? All our knowledge comes from the past. We don't live in the past. We live all the time moving into the future. Now, what is my attitude towards the past? Before we get, I teach history, so I love the past. Okay. You got to learn the past. You have to learn your history. And not only your national history or your social history or your cultural history, you have to learn the history of your own profession. How many doctors know the history of medicine? How many lawyers know the history of law? How many professors know the history of the universities? How many people know the history of their own profession? How many economists know the history of economics? I can tell you like 0. Or the intellectual history of economics, which is really interesting. They become the alpha and the omega. There's no before and no after. There's no sense that they are a link in a chain. So there is no inherent humility. Experts can be arrogant. They very often are. Now, what is humility? Humility is not Uriah Heep saying, "Oh, I'm doing." Humility is knowing your limitations. Now, to know your limitations, you have to know your abilities too. You know, like Babe Ruth knew he couldn't steal bases, but he could hit home runs. You know, that's humility, you know, in a way. And that's what futurism does. That's what the future. When you're thinking of it, you're trying to break through accepted ways of thinking. You're trying to break holes. You're trying to imagineer. The word Imagineer was invented by Walt Disney. His Imagineers were the ones that built Disney World. It's a profession.